Hello again. Today we're going to be discussing a wonderful topic with you. And before we go into the topic, I would like to ask you a question concerning environmental pollution. In one of our videos, we actually did exposition on environmental pollution. And I also mentioned that environmental pollution is actually, and you can call it an environmental hazard. And we have looked at the different types of environmental pollution, which is based on human activities, different types of environmental pollution. We talked about water pollution. We talked about air pollution. Today, we're going to be looking at another exciting type of environmental pollution, and that is land pollution. Now, the soil is actually the uppermost part of the earth on which plants grow and living organisms carry, or animals also carry out their activities. Of course, you should take note that the compositions of the soil includes microorganisms. We also have soil organisms. We have water, we have air, we have particles, we have minerals are also found in the soil. Now, anything that actually disturbs the composition or obstructs the structure and the composition of the soil actually leads to soil pollution, or it can also be termed to be soil pollution. So today we are going to be diving into various discussions about land or soil pollution. Remember, we also said that environmental pollution is the release of harmful substances into the environment to the extent that it causes biological damage. And we said that those harmful substances which, when released, causes damage or harm are referred to as pollutants. Today, we're going to be looking at some other subtopics in this interesting topic on land pollution. We are going to be discussing definition of land pollution. We are also going to be looking at the causes of land pollution. We are also going to be talking about some of the effects of land pollution. And finally, we're also going to be looking at how to control land pollution. It's not just enough knowing the cause, knowing the effects, but looking for ways or approaches or methods we can apply or adopt in order to actually combat this environmental hazard. All right. Now, if you're set, I would like us to begin with this first one, and that is the meaning of land or soil pollution. We have already defined the land as the uppermost part of the earth on which plant grows and animals carry out their activities. And I also said that anything that obstructs the structure or the composition of the soil or the land is what leads to soil or land pollution. So by definition, what is land pollution? Now, land pollution can be simply defined as the release of harmful substances onto the soil or land to the extent that it causes biological damage or is significant damage. So that is what we call land pollution. So you can see that the dumping of refuse and so many other things on land, anything you do on the soil, anything you do on the land that obstructs or somehow cause damage to the land or to living organisms that are benefiting from the land is referred and termed to be land or soil pollution. Now, let's move to the next thing that has to do with causes of land or soil pollution. Causes of land or soil pollution. Now, one of the major causes of soil pollution, or you can even say pollutants. Remember, we said pollutants are those harmful substances which, when released into the environment, can cause significant damage or biological damage. So land pollutants are actually those substances which, when released into the land or onto the land or soil, can cause biological or significant damage. Now, we have several examples of land pollutants. We have refuse, we have sewage. Note that refuse talks about solid waste, and then sewage talks about liquid waste. Sewage is liquid waste, solid waste is refuse. So refuse, sewage, and which we can categorize them into biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste, okay? Mostly in terms of the refuse. In refuse, we have biodegradable refuse, we have non-biodegradable refuse. In subsequent videos, we are going to be looking at these different types of refuse or waste, biodegradable waste and non-biodegradable waste. Another example of a land pollutant is actually plastics, okay? Plastics, which are part of the refuse. Another one is crude oil. Okay, crude oil is also another major example of a land pollutant. Another example of land pollutant is broken bottles, broken glasses. These are also examples of land pollutant. Another one again is agrochemicals. Agrochemicals can be a very major land pollutant that can affect organisms in the land or on the soil, or in the soil rather. Microorganisms kill them and all that, which are beneficial to the soil. So agrochemicals can also be another example. Industrial chemicals, which when released on lands can also cause or bring about pollution in the land. Now, what are the causes of land or soil pollution? One of the causes of soil pollution is improper refuse and sewage disposal. In fact, this human activity has contributed so much to environmental pollution, both in terms of air pollution, in terms of water pollution, also in terms of land pollution. Improper refuse and sewage disposal, improper sewage disposal, improper refuse disposal. In most parts of the world, people actually deposit or dispose their waste improperly. Some persons deposit or dispose their waste on the streets. Some dispose their waste in water bodies. Some dispose their waste by burning it in open fields or in open air, thereby causing air pollution. We are going to be looking at some of these effects of land pollution mostly, but please remember this. One of the important cause of land pollution or soil pollution is actually improper refuse and sewage disposal. The next one is excessive use of agrochemicals. Remember, I told you that agrochemicals can also be referred to as land pollutants. They can also be seen as water pollutants, but they can also be seen as land pollutants. Examples of agrochemicals, we have things like the pesticides, we have the herbicides, we have the insecticides, we have the fertilizers, etc. Now, these chemicals are good. They actually help the farmland. But when they are poured or applied on the farm in excess, when we apply these agrochemicals in excess, they become a menace. They become something harmful. They become pollutants. They become something that causes biological damage at the long run. So excess use of agrochemicals such as pesticides and fertilizers can also be a cause of land pollution. And we're going to be looking at ways we can control them much more later, and you will understand that one of the reasons why most farmers apply excess agrochemicals on their farmland is actually because of lack of education. Most of them are rural farmers that lack knowledge of the right quantity of these agrochemicals that should be applied on their farmlands. And because of their ignorance, they tend to apply so much so that they can see quick results of these agrochemicals. So one of the another major cause of land pollution is excessive use of agrochemicals. Number 3 on the list is discharge of industrial waste, such as acids. We have organic solvents, detergents. When they are deposited or disposed or discharged on the soil, it becomes a very big problem. Now, that has to do with the industries. The industries should know how they manage their waste, be it flaring of the gases. They should know how they manage it. Be it sewage that comes out from the factories or industries, it should be properly managed before they are being released into water bodies, before they are also released onto the land. So most times the discharge of these chemicals can become a major threat to soil and also plants in those areas or in the farm. The next one is crude oil spills. Crude oil spillage or crude oil spills on lands or on the soil or in the farmland. Now, when there is crude oil spill, it poses a very big issue. Plants do not grow well. Living organisms found there, they will die, definitely, they die. So these are some of the causes of land pollution, some of the causes of land pollution. Now, we also have number 5, absorption of polluted water by the soil. Now, when the soil absorbs polluted water based on the water that is found around there, it poses a very big issue to plants. Plants absorbing polluted water, it affects the plants, it affects its growth, it affects its development, and so many other things it can cause, because polluted waters most times are deficient in some essential minerals that are actually needed by plants to grow well. So most of these polluted waters should be actually treated, or waters around, and mostly waters can be polluted when industries are sited close to water bodies and they discharge their waste into water bodies, and a farmland is actually close to that water body. It becomes a serious problem to those plants that are growing close to that polluted water body. The next one is that's all for causes of land pollution. The next one we have is effects of land pollution. What are the effects of land pollution? Now, land pollution has so many effects, so much effects. One of the effects of land pollution is that polluted soil looks very unattractive. Definitely you will agree with me. If you move around the streets, if you're walking, if you're living in a place and you are very close to a place and you find refuse being dumped on the streets, definitely it doesn't look attractive. Most persons wouldn't want to stay in such an environment. It is smell and so many other things. In fact, it's not befitting for someone to be living close to such a place. So dumping of refuse on places where they should not be dumped actually doesn't look nice. Even if you go to a landfill, and see where refuse are actually dumped, nobody likes. In fact, it's not an attractive place to go do camping. It's not an attractive place for recreational activities. Okay, so polluted soil looks very unattractive, mostly like the refuse dump sites. Another important effect of refuse, of land pollution, is that the bad smell that comes from it. Now, that bad smell can also cause air pollution. That's air pollution, all right? So the bad smell that comes from dumps, from waste bins and all that. And of course, imagine if a street is actually flooded with waste or refuse, and there are so many, let's say, sewage is also discharged on drainages. Imagine the smell. And this thing passes through residential areas or residential places. Definitely that place won't have a good smell. So one of the major effects of improper refuse disposal, which is a cause, which causes land pollution, is that the bad smell from the dump site causes air pollution. Number 3 on the list is soil pollution can lead to the outbreak of diseases. Definitely, it can lead to the outbreak of diseases. Now, one of the reasons why it will lead to the outbreak of diseases is because those dump sites attracts vectors. And of course, we know that vectors are actually small animals, usually insects, that have the ability to transmit diseases or carry pathogens from one place to another. Now, pathogens are actually germs, or they are actually microorganisms that can cause diseases. So if a place is land polluted, or if a particular community is polluted, the land is polluted, definitely there will be a massive outbreak of disease, and massive outbreak of diseases. One of the best ways to actually reduce the outbreak of diseases is actually to reduce pollution, mostly as it relates to water and land pollution. It helps to minimize, brings to the barest minimum the presence of pathogens and even germs. So one of the effects is that it leads to the outbreak of diseases. Number 4 on the list in terms of effects of land pollution is that crude oil spills on farmland, they destroy crops. Yes, they do destroy crops. Remember also, if you check our videos, crude oil spills on water bodies also kill or destroys aquatic organisms. In the same manner, crude oil spills on farmland also destroys crops, thus affecting food production. Now imagine if a large scale or quantity of crops are affected by crude oil, definitely it will lead to shortage of food, or it will lead to reduction in food, availability of food, reduction in availability of food. And definitely it will increase hunger, and competition will also increase. And these things are factors that can also bring about a check in population, and can also bring about a reduction in population. So in other words, what we're trying to say is crude oil spills on farmlands, they destroy crops, not only the crops, but also destroy living organisms that are found in those crops. Next is number 5. Now, the presence of non-biodegradable materials. Remember, we talked about non-biodegradable materials. I told you we have waste, 2 types of waste. We have the biodegradable waste. We have the non-biodegradable waste. Now, the biodegradable waste are waste that cannot be broken down by microorganisms. It means that they cannot decay. While non-biodegradable waste, biodegradable waste are waste that can decay, okay, that can be broken down. While non-biodegradable waste are waste that cannot decay, neither can they be broken down. They can't be broken down by microorganisms. An example of a biodegradable waste, we have the vegetables, we have the meat, we have the fish, we have fruits. All these biodegradable substances or waste. We have food leftovers, banana peels, and so on. These are waste, and if they are kept there, definitely they can lead to decomposition, which can bring a bad smell. But what we're actually looking at under number 5 is the non-biodegradable materials. Now, non-biodegradable materials include things like the polythene bags, it includes things like the glass, it includes things like papers, and so on. Now, most of these non-biodegradable waste, they stop the spread of the roots of plants. They stop the spread of the roots of the plant. Now, the roots of the plant play a major role in the survival of the plant. The roots of the plant absorb water and mineral salts. Now, minerals are actually used by plants for healthy growth and development. The water that is absorbed by the root is taken to the leaves to manufacture food for the plant. So in other words, if the roots can't penetrate so deep in order to absorb these waters and minerals, it will wither and actually die. So in other words, what we're saying is that if the soil, if there is a disturbance in the spread of the roots of the plant, it can lead to early withering of the plant. Can lead to early withering of the plant. And yes, this is a negative effect, a negative effect. Number 6 on the list on causes of land pollution, causes of land pollution. Another one is excessive application of agrochemicals negatively affects the growth of plants. If you could remember, we mentioned something about agrochemicals, and I told you that agrochemicals are not bad. They are very, very needful. they are significant. They are actually needful in farming. Needful in farming. We have things like the pesticides, very important chemical. We have the fertilizers, which helps to improve the fertility of the soil and also bring about an increased yield of crops and so on. But when these agrochemicals or important agrochemicals are applied in excess, it poses a big problem to the growing plants. So it can affect the growth of plants. Another effect of excessive application of agrochemicals is that those agrochemicals, when the rains come, they can be washed by the rains and then washed into water bodies. Now, once they are washed into water bodies, they bring about water pollution. And washing into water bodies makes that water unfit for drinking. It can also affect aquatic organisms that are there in that water. Definitely, some of these agrochemicals, if ingested, can lead to cancer. Okay, it can cause several diseases in humans as well as animals. So, excessive application of agrochemicals is actually one major cause of land pollution as well as water pollution. Now, quickly, let's take a look at finally at ways we can control land pollution. How do we control land pollution? Okay, we have one more in terms of causes, and the last one has to do with injuries. When you have broken bottles all around, broken bottles can pose a very big injury or can cause an injury to the skin. Now, it can injure the skin, and we have examples. We have the broken bottles, we have the broken glasses. These can be so injurious. Imagine someone stepping on broken bottles or broken glasses. Definitely the person will get a cut. And that is also a negative effect of land pollution. Now, quickly, let's talk about control. How do we control land pollution? How to control these pollutants? Now, one of the best ways to control land pollution or to prevent, if I may say, land pollution is to control land pollutants. When the pollutants are being controlled, managed, and they are not just released into the environment, pollution in whatever way, environmental pollution can be reduced. Environmental pollution can be reduced. Now let's look at one of the ways we can achieve this. One is refuse should be sorted into biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste before disposal. Now there are three methods in which we can apply in carrying out effective disposal of waste. Remember, waste can be divided into two. We have the the refuse, and then we have the sewage. Now, in terms of looking at the refuse, remember we said we have biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. Now, one of the effective ways of disposing waste or refuse, one of them is collecting. You collect it. And that has to do with the provision of waste bins, waste bins, dust bins, where these waste can be collected into bins. Now, once they are collected into bins, the next stage is to sort these waste. Now, you sort them into biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. Now, the non-biodegradable waste can be recycled, while the biodegradable waste can be, you can turn them into compost. Okay, we're going to be looking at more examples or more factors that can be adopted or methods that can be adopted in order to control land pollutants. Okay, so one of the ways to control refuse is to sort it into biodegradable waste and non-biodegradable waste before you start disposing. Remember, I told you three ways we can dispose effectively. One is collecting, two is sorting, and three is what? Effective disposal. You can dispose several ways. You can dispose your waste by recycling it. You can dispose your waste effectively by converting it into compost. Now, the second one is composting of their biodegradable waste. I just mentioned that. So you can either turn it into compost. And there are several ways we can make compost. One of the easiest and simplest ways to make compost, first of all, is to actually collect the waste, which is the biodegradable waste. Like I said, it includes banana peels, it includes fruits, it includes vegetables, it includes leftover foods. All you do is you on a particular piece of land, you make 4 different squares, okay? You can make 4 different squares on a particular piece of land, make a hole and make 4 different squares, or you can get a wood and make a heap up to a sizable heap, and then carve it into 4 different squares, okay? And then you label them A, B, C, and D. So what you do first of all is that you pour your biodegradable waste in square A and allow it for at least 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, you transfer the biodegradable waste in square A into square B. And then also into square A, you put a fresh biodegradable waste. So you now have 2. Then after 2 weeks, you take the one from B and transfer it to square C, and take the one from A and transfer it to square B, and then put a fresh biodegradable waste for square A. And then also after 2 weeks, you take the one from square C and add and put it in, transfer it into square D. Take the one from square B, transfer it into square C. Take the one from square A, transfer it to square B, and then put a fresh one on square A. Now that that particular this thing you have on square A is now a compost, because what you do is, like you can see on the screen, you take the biodegradable waste, mix it up with soil, okay? Mix it up with soil, leave it there for 2 weeks, like I said, and then you shift it into another place. You mix it again, not that you're adding a new one. You mix it with the soil again, the same soil, mix it with it, and then allow it for another 2 weeks, transfer it into another, and that is, by the time you've done that at least 3 or 4 times, you will get a compost, okay? So biodegradable waste, when sorted out into biodegradable waste, they can be converted to what? Compost. Another one is recycling. Now, the non-biodegradable waste can be recycled. Examples, we have things like plastics, we have things like bottles, glasses, rubbers, okay? Polythene, they can be recycled. These can be recycled. Paper, you take them back into the industries or factories, they can be recycled. Now, recycling simply means use again what has been used before. To use again what has been used before. So we can undergo, or one can carry out recycling of non-biodegradable waste. The next one, number 4, is burning of waste in incinerators. Now, most of those waste that are being collected on the streets or on land can be burnt instead of dumping them there on the street. Another effective method of disposing these refuse is to burn them in an incinerator. Now, an incinerator is actually an equipment, okay, very huge equipment, okay, that is actually used to burn refuse, and then the release, of course, when you burn these refuse outside, okay, when you burn them outside in the open air, the emissions of those smoke, or the smoke that is being emitted or produced, the soot and smoke that is produced actually pollutes the air, okay? It brings about air pollution. So, but when you burn these refuse inside an incinerator, the incinerator helps to filter the air, it will actually burn the refuse, filter the air, and then release harmless gases to the atmosphere. Release harmless gases to the atmosphere. So burning of refuse in incinerators is actually another effective method of disposing waste. So the next one we're going to be looking at is number 5, and that is providing large public dump tanks where the public can empty their waste. You know, apart from our homes, schools, offices, Another place where waste can actually be generated is on the streets. Now, the government can help out in this perspective by providing waste bins as strategic areas. Now, we have, you can see on the screen, we have several different types of waste bins. We have the compost, as you can see there. By this arrangement, the government is already carrying out two processes or two stages of effective waste disposal. They are collecting and they are also sorting it out. All right. So in terms of compost, so it means that all waste that should enter the compost should not be plastic. Okay, there should be no plastic. We have things like banana peels. We have fruits. We have orange peels. We have mango peels. We have vegetables. We have food leftovers. They should come into the compost. We also have the waste. All right. They said all plastic bags. Are you seeing it? So these ones can also be somehow recycled. Then you see the other one. They said recycle. You have rubbers. You have bottles. You have cups and some other things. You have papers. They can all be sent into these areas. So the provision of these public dump tanks or public waste bins can go a whole long way to actually help reduce drastically the increase, or the rate of land pollution, okay, in our environment. Next one is number 6. Number 6, educating the farmers on the right quantity of agrochemicals. You could remember while we were talking about this video, when we were looking at excessive use of agrochemicals, I told you that most times the reason why most farmers apply excess agrochemicals is actually lack of knowledge, or you can call it lack of exposure or education. All right. So I don't want to say they are illiterates, but lack of education on how to make use of some of these fertilizers or some of these agrochemicals. So farmers have to be educated. In fact, in agri-science, there is a branch of agri-science that has to do with educating farmers. I think we call that agricultural extensive agriculture. So that is a situation where the farmers are actually taught how to make use of these chemicals, So these are some of the important ways we can actually reduce the rate of land pollution. And then also, we have the last one. We have the last one, which is the second to the last. We have the use of alternative methods by farmers. Use of alternative methods by farmers other than fertilizers to increase soil fertility. Now, fertilizers are actually chemicals, okay? Over time, the application of these fertilizers can also affect the crops over time. Now, when you keep applying fertilizers on a particular piece of land over and over again, these are chemicals. They tend to affect soil organisms, useful soil organisms, and so many other things, which can, with time, reduce the rate at which plants grow and also your crop yield. Now, one of the best things to do is that sometimes the farmers should adopt other methods of increasing the fertility of the soil other than fertilizers. We have bush fallowing, we have crop rotation, we have adding composting, which is adding manure, which is compost manure to the farmland, other than putting agrochemicals. So these are also alternative methods that can be used on farmlands and hence reduce land pollution. And then also we have treating industrial waste before they are being disposed into any part of the system, whether on land, also on the water. So, and then we also have the number 9th one, which is regular maintenance of oil tankers and pipelines to prevent crude oil spillage. Now, also, the government can also help in setting up agencies and making laws to prevent pipeline vandalizations, and also set up agency that will ensure that the pipelines are not vandalized, and also ensure the maintenance of pipelines. And also during offloading and loading of tankers, oil tankers and all that, care should actually be taken by those loading and offloading crude oil barrels and so on, so that there will not be spills on the land. All right. So these are some of the ways. And then number 10, we talked about enacting laws. I just mentioned it. I said the government should set laws, and these laws should help. Now, most of these laws can be, like I just mentioned, concerning crude oil spillage. Okay, set up laws that against vandalization of crude oil, set up committees, set up agencies that will monitor and enforce these laws in our communities. So these are some of the few ways we can control land pollution. And also this is where we call it a wrap-up on this particular exciting edition on Class Today on land pollution. I hope you enjoyed it. Please send your questions if you have. And I also advise you to make use of the Examguide app. We have for basic science, where you can also go through past questions that will help you prepare for your exams. Bye for now.